The Sargent House Museum is located in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and is a small but visually impressive mansion. The exterior of this house is a Georgian symmetrical style home. Georgian architecture is basically a house supported by heavy pilasters at the building's corners. The most intriguing part of the house is the staircase that brings the most tourism to the Sargent House. Also, there is a part of the house that contains a small rectangular room, kind of like a closet, where Judith wrote all of her letters and where most of her ideas became published. The dining room of the house exhibits blue and white French wallpaper given by portraitist John Singer Sargent in the early 1920s. This house was built in 1782 for the young, talented writer, philosopher, and early women's advocate Judith Sargent. Judith Sargent Murray was born on May 1st, 1751 in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Judith was very interested in ancient history, therefore she wanted to take classes like her brother Winthrop Sargent had been doing so. But Judith wasn't able to take the classes she wanted because only men were allowed to be educated in schools at this time. As Judith understood why she couldn't take those classes, she started to write letters, kind of like journals, where she kept all of her personal thoughts. In each letter she wrote, she would use the author's name of Constantia because she believed it would appeal to men to read, for they would never read anything a woman had to write about. Those letters she wrote contained her reasons why women should be equally treated as men are. She used facts about ancient history of why women should be equal to men. Judith's letters would be the start of a long struggle she faced in order to fulfill her dreams that men and women would be equal. Judith also wrote plays as she advanced in her writing, such as The Medium and also A Happy Tea Party, that were performed at the Boston's Federal State Theater in 1795. Judith's plays were the first American plays performed at the theater. Other plays Judith wrote were The Traveler Returned in 1796. 2 years later, Judith published a 3-volume collection of her columns called The Gleaner. The Gleaner was purchased by American icons such as George Washington, John Adams, Henry Cox, and Mercy Otis Warren. The Seneca Falls Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York on July 19th and on the 20th in 1848. This convention was organized by members of a Quaker group led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. This convention was mainly about the role of women in society and how women can make a greater impact to the world if equal to men. At the convention, the Declaration of Sentiments was written on the famous tea table that symbolizes the convention. The Declaration of Sentiments was a document that was basically a sheet containing all the names of the people in attendance of the convention, which was 68 women for every 32 men out of the 300 attendees. This convention was the first women's rights convention that used Judith's arguments and ideas she supported to make their points more relevant. This convention took place at the Wesleyan Baptist Methodist Chapel that is seen today very torn apart from what it was. This chapel is seen as a huge figure in the women's natural rights. Protests around the world began during this convention as people created signs and started small petition groups in rage. John Murray was born in Alton, Hampshire in England on December 10, 1741. Then in 1774 he settled in Gloucester where he met his future wife Judith. When John first came into Gloucester, he was assumed to be a British spy, but in 1775 he was appointed chaplain of the Rhode Island Brigade before being appointed in Boston by General Washington. John was the founder of the Universalist denomination in the United States. He also contributes to the founding of the first Universalist church in America in 1774. On October 23, 1793, he became the pastor of the Universalist Society of Boston. John faithfully served as the pastor until October 19, 1809, when he suffered a stroke that caused him to stop preaching. As John unfortunately passed away as he was working on his autobiography in 1815, he was lucky enough to have Judith by his side as she published his autobiography and published a 3-volume collection of John's writings called Letter and Sketches of Sermons in 1812. The Sargent house had an immense impact to the social aspects of the Essex County area and the world today, which is why the Sargent House Museum is a popular tourist area and is valued in Essex County today.